In a time of little parity in baseball, there was one consistency, and that was the Brooklyn Dodgers making the World Series and not winning. More specifically, not beating the Yankees, losing to them 5 times in their first 7 appearances. But everything changed in 1955, when a miracle occurred. So let's look at how the Dodgers finally beat the Yankees.
Totally sports-esque. Major League.
If you hate a Yankees-Dodgers World Series matchup now, well, you would have had a hard time in the 40s and 50s. From 1941 to 56, these two played in the World Series 7 times. And from 1941 to 58, a New York team was in 14 of the 18 World Series. That being either the Yankees, Dodgers, or Giants, who all played in New York at the time. And even in the next 8 World Series, the Yankees or Dodgers were in each one, with the Dodgers leaving to Los Angeles in 1958. So aside from a year here or there, it wasn't too fun to be a fan of a team not from New York. But before the Dodgers would head to Los Angeles, it also wasn't always fun to be a Dodgers fan. Obviously, it's fun to watch your team compete for a pennant nearly every year, with great players like Duke Snider, Roy Campanella, Gil Hodges, and of course Jackie Robinson. But they could never reach the ultimate goal of winning the World Series, as the Yankees were always too much. The Brooklyn Dodgers in the time were the baseball equivalent of the Buffalo Bills, playing in 2 World Series Game 7s and a best of 7 prior, and losing both. And before they would consistently lose to the Yankees, they did have 2 World Series appearances in 1916 and 1920. In a time where they were called the Brooklyn Robins, they lost both, actually playing a Game 7 in 1920 and losing when things were the best of 9. And the time after wasn't great, as they had just 5 seasons over 500 in the next 18. And in a time when you had to win the league to make the World Series, winning a few more than 80 games won't do much. They officially adopted the Dodgers name for good in 1931, named after fans who had to dodge trolleys on their way to games, the biggest problem Americans are facing to this day. But they also adopted another nickname of Dem Bums, gaining a reputation as lovable losers. But they weren't just pure losers starting in the 40s, as they became serious contenders. With Leo DeRocher as player-manager, players like Pee Wee Reese and Pete Reiser would help the Dodgers win their first pennant since 1920 and 1941, where Mickey Owen would make a huge miscue on a drop-through strike in Game 4 in the 9th. The Yankees would end up coming back afterwards to win, then the Dodgers lost the next game, as they would lose to the Yankees in 5 games, this being the Yankees' 5th title in 6 years. Branch Rickey would become GM in 1943 after playing a huge role in the development of the farm system while he was in St. Louis, and most famously, he would sign Jackie Robinson in 1945. And 2 years later, he would break the color barrier, and he would go on to be a huge addition for the Dodgers, as he would win Rookie of the Year and help the Dodgers win the pennant again, where they would lose to the Yankees again, this time in 7. Jackie Robinson would become MVP in 1949, as Don Newcombe would become Rookie of the Year, and they would lose the World Series again to the Yankees in 5. They would lose a tiebreaker game to their other crosstown rivals in the Giants in 1951, as Roy Campanella was named MVP. Then Joe Black would win Rookie of the Year in 1952, as they lost again to the Yankees in the World Series in 7 games, losing the final 2 games of the series at home. And they would return the next year as Roy Campanella won another MVP, and Jim Gilliam won Rookie of the Year. And again, they would lose to the Yankees in 6 games. They finished behind the Giants in 1954, which led things to 1955. Of course, fans had high hopes, but there was the lingering dread of the inevitable. They had to get to the World Series first, though, and there was really no doubt as they won a pennant over the Milwaukee Braves by 13.5 games, scoring the most runs in the league and allowing the fewest runs. Pretty good combination. And for the 3rd time in 5 years, Roy Campanella won MVP. But there was controversy. Campanella won the vote 226 to 221, and in the time, a player received 14 points for a first place vote, then 9 for second, then 8 for third, and so on. And there was a writer from Philadelphia who was hospitalized with sickness and turned in a ballot with Campanella at 1st and at 5th. They were unable to clarify what the writer meant, with assumptions that he meant to write Snider in at 5th, and after considering disallowing it, they accepted it and counted the first place vote for Campanella, and the 5th place vote was counted as if it was left blank. Had it been disallowed, Snider would have won, and if Snider would have got the 5th place vote, he also would have won. But he didn't, though he did get the Sporting News Player of the Year. Either way, both were on their way to the World Series, and of course, it was against the 96-win Yankees, with their MVP and Yogi Berra. Despite the Dodgers having the better record, the Yankees got home field advantage because leagues alternated every year, which is why the 111-win Cleveland Indians did not get home field advantage in 1954. Either way, the World Series was in New York, and Game 1 saw Whitey Ford go against Don Newcombe in an unexpected back-and-forth affair. The Dodgers scored 2 in the 2nd with Jackie Robinson's triple, but in the bottom half, Eisenhower hit a game-tying 2-run home run, this being the rookie's first World Series at-bat, seemingly typical for the Yankees. But the one who should have won MVP in Duke Snider hit a leadoff home run in the 3rd to take the lead for a minute as Irv Noren drove in a run in the bottom half to tie things. Then 1 inning later, the Yankees took the lead on a Joe Collins home run. Then 2 innings later, he hit another one, this being a 2-run home run to put them up 6-3. Billy Martin would hit a triple, and he tried to steal home, but was tagged out by Campanella. The fiery Billy Martin took a few steps towards Campanella, but he went back to the dugout, later saying he felt he had been tagged on the throat. Campanella would later say, "Tell that little so-and-so that I missed. I tried to put the ball in his mouth." It was a play that in part led to one of the most famous in baseball history. Ford would pitch into the 8th, and Jackie Robinson got on with an error. Then Don Zimmer drove in a run on a sac fly, putting Robinson on third. Then as Robinson danced off third, Ford purposely took a long windup, and Robinson dashed home. And though the ball beat him, the umpire ruled him safe with incredible enthusiasm, and Yogi Berra immediately whipped off his mask to argue. But obviously there was nothing he could do in a play that became one of the most debated and one of the most iconic images of Robinson. And though there are still debates to this day, what many may not know is the steal didn't end up really mattering, as the Yankees ended up winning the game 6-5, though the steal is still what is most remembered. Things moved to Game 2 with the Yankees in their natural position with a series lead, and Tommy Byrne and Billy Lowe's were great to start, until the 4th, when the Dodgers broke through with a Snyder RBI single. However, the Yankees also broke through with 4 runs in the bottom half, including a 2-run single by Byrne. The Dodgers did score again the next inning, but couldn't add any more as Burns pitched a complete game, as the Yankees took a 2-0 series lead, and to that point, no team had ever come back from a 2-0 deficit. But things were now going back to Brooklyn, where the Dodgers had a .727 winning percentage, so they were glad to go back home, miles away, in the same city. And in Game 3, Johnny Podres made his first start and got help in the first with a 2-run home run from Roy Campanella. However, a Mickey Mantle home run would help tie things in the second, Mantle playing in just one of his 3 games in the series. However, the Dodgers responded with 2 of their own in the bottom half, then added 2 more in the 4th and the 7th, as Podres would pitch a complete game, giving up 3 runs as the Dodgers picked up their first win of the series, and what would be the last World Series game ever played in September, and I doubt there's any future plans. But as things moved to October, 1 year before he made history, Don Larson was on the mound against Carl Erskine, who only lasted 3 innings, giving up 3 earned runs along the way, leaving with the Dodgers up 3-1 before the Yankees would tie things. But in the bottom of the 4th, Roy Campanella would lead things off with a home run. Then Gil Hodges would hit a 2-run home run to put the Dodgers ahead. Then the next inning, Duke Snider's 3-run home run would be the dagger. Though the Yankees added 2, it wasn't enough, as the Dodgers would end up winning 8-5. And now the series was tied at 2, just like 1947, 52, and 53. And only in 52 did the Dodgers win Game 5, before losing the last 2 at home. And naturally, that would make Game 5 here huge, as having to win 1 game at Yankee Stadium was a daunting task, and having to win 2 straight seemed almost impossible. And in this game that was basically a must-win, Sandy Amoros hit a 2-run home run in the 2nd, then Duke Snider hit a solo in the 3rd, before hitting another one in the 5th to put the Dodgers up 4-1, making him the first to hit 4 home runs in 2 World Series. The Yankees made things a 1-run game with 1 run in the 7th and the 8th, but a Jackie Robinson RBI single in the 8th added insurance, as the Dodgers would win 5-3, a massive win that put them in the same place they were in 52, needing to win just 1 more game to finally get their title. But realistic Dodgers fans still couldn't have complete confidence. They've gone through this multiple times, and they were used to disappointment. But again, you never know what may happen. But it was obvious that they did know the Dodgers weren't winning Game 6 from the start. In the first inning, the Yankees scored 5 runs off Carl Spooner, capped off with a 3-run home run from Bill Skowron. The Yankees didn't score another run, but it didn't matter, as Whitey Ford would proceed through a complete game, giving up just 1 run. And as many expected from the start, this series was going 7 games, meaning the next one was the biggest game in Brooklyn Dodgers history, a phrase that had been said multiple times in recent years. On the mound was the Yankees Game 2 starter in Tommy Byrne, going against the Dodgers Game 3 starter in Johnny Podres, who would pitch the game of his life. But it wasn't exactly smooth sailing. The first 3 innings were scoreless, with the bottom of the 3rd giving an indication that the gods may decide to give the Dodgers their day. As with the runner on second, Gil McDougall hit what looked to be a sure hit on the ground in the 3rd, but the ball hit a sliding Phil Rizzuto, which therefore ended the inning with Yogi Berra left on deck, a play that would normally happen to the Dodgers. And they capitalized for the first run the next inning when Gil Hodges scored Roy Campanella on a single. And as Padres was cruising, they added another in the 6th with a Gil Hodges sac fly. At the bottom half, as George Schuba pinch hit, Sandy Amoros would be moved to left field. Another fortunate move, as a walk and a single put 2 runners on to start, with Yogi Berra up to the plate. And he would proceed to hit one into the left field corner that Amoros would run over and catch on the run. He would then throw to Pee Wee Reese, who threw to first for a double play. Given the circumstances, this was one of the greatest plays in World Series history, and it was even bigger when Billy Martin was stranded at second. The Dodgers couldn't do much in the final 3 innings, so Padres had to keep rolling, and things got scary in the 7th with 2 outs, when Nelson Howard hit a single to bring up pinch hitter Mickey Mantle. And though he homered off him before, this time he only hit a pop-up to end the 7th inning. But again, the Yankees had a chance in the 8th with runners on the corners with 1 out. However, Podres got Bear to fly out, and he struck out Bauer, putting the Dodgers just 3 outs away with the 2-0 lead still intact, going to the bottom of the 9th. And Podres finally worked quick, getting the first 2 on a groundout and a flyout in an inning that was fast, but felt like it took forever for Dodgers fans. And with 1 more to go, he got Elston Howard to hit a ground ball to Pee Wee Reese, and as Reese would say, it seemed to take hours to pick up the ball, but he did, and he threw it to first for the out, and finally the Brooklyn Dodgers had won the World Series. And finally, they had beat the Yankees. For long-suffering Brooklyn Dodgers fans, it was complete jubilation, as Johnny Podres was named World Series MVP and a hero amongst fans. They flooded the streets and celebrated, as their motto of next year was no longer a thing, and they celebrated like it may never happen again, because it never did for the Dodgers while in Brooklyn. For the 7th and final time, the Yankees and Dodgers were playing the World Series while both teams were in New York in 1956. And again, it went 7, and just like every previous time except in 1955, the Yankees won. This time again in 7 games, as they won Game 7, this time 9-0. And the reason it never happened again is after 1957, both the Dodgers and Giants would head to the West Coast, upsetting fans for decades to come. And as far as the World Series, the Dodgers have had better fortune while in Los Angeles than they had in Brooklyn. In their first 9 seasons in Los Angeles, they would make the World Series 4 times, and they would win the World Series 3 times, which includes a sweep over the Yankees in 1963. Better fortune in their first 3 years than in the past 50. And it was a mini version of what Brooklyn fans went through in the late 70s and early 80s. As the Yankees and Dodgers met in 77 and 78, both times the Yankees won. But in 81, they would meet for the 11th time, and the Dodgers finally got past them after losing the first 2 games like 55 and winning the last 4, including Game 6 in New York. Their most recent World Series matchup until now, as a 43-year gap between, is the longest in the history of the most frequent World Series matchup, of course the playoffs expanding for good since that 1981 season. But in a matchup that has brought many iconic World Series moments, the 1955 series is right up there. It was David topping Goliath if David got 5 chances to do it the first time. And it's what happened after that made it more special and bittersweet for Brooklyn fans, as this marked the only time Brooklyn won a championship in any sport. Commemorated 50 years later, when just 10 people gathered at the site of Ebbets Field at exactly 3:43 to remember the exact moment it finally happened, with the only surviving member of the Dodgers team currently being Sandy Koufax, who was a rookie in 1955. And all these years later, it will be a rookie who will try to bring another championship to Brooklyn. Hopefully you liked this video, and if so, please consider liking and subscribing for new videos every week. Thank you.